plaque. This is a kit class, and hopefully by now everybody's received their kit. I'm going to be walking a step-by-step tutorial for you through this kit, and we will take this journey together, and I'll show you how easy it is to actually work with some of Tim's ideology to create some of these really fabulous projects. This is a recorded class, so at the end of the video, I will send you a link to the class so you'll be able to refer back to it whenever you want to. This is a private class, so I would ask that you don't share the link with your friends. You guys paid for this class and you get the privilege of the class. So there's no need in sharing it with all your lovely friends, unless you want to, I guess, but I would ask that you don't. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and transition the camera down and we'll go ahead and get started. For your desk, before I actually do that, make sure that you do have your glue gun plugged in. We are going to be using your glue gun. Make sure you have a pair of scissors, and make sure you do have some sort of a screwdriver, because we are going to have to take the hardware off of the clipboard. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and transition my camera. Let's see. All right. Okay, so you should be seeing my desktop now. Hopefully everybody can see my desktop. Feel free to ask questions or interrupt me if an instruction is not clear, or if you can't hear me or anything like that. Like I said, I'm a very laid back teacher. I want this to be a enjoyable class, not a stressful class for you. So anything I can do to try to make your experience better, just feel free to let me know. All right, so the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to work with our clipboard. This is where your screwdriver comes in. I've already taken off my hardware, but if you flip your clipboard over, you're going to see where you have screws that you can unscrew. And you want to take off the hardware so that this is loose and you have a board. So I'll give you guys a second to do that, because we're going to be adding some paper to this. Now, in your kit, you also receive some paper. You should have 4 pieces of paper. You have a larger piece and then you have a smaller piece. And the way that I did this when I covered my original one is I put the longer piece first, and then I attached the smaller piece at the bottom, because you're going to find that your little shelf will cover the seam, which is really nice. So you can lay your paper however you want when you get to that point, but that's just how I did it. Now for my paper, what I'm going to be using is I actually had Tim's new paper set. So I'm using one of the pieces from his paper set. Unfortunately, I couldn't buy 15 of those. It would have made your kit a lot more expensive had I done that. So I'm using this paper, but you're going to have some paper inside of your kit to be able to work with. And essentially what you're going to be doing is we're just going to be gluing this down. All right. So once you get your hardware off, go ahead and get your adhesive. Don't use your glue gun for this. I would recommend glue for this, or even his mixed media, his, what do you call it? His glue. If you have that, just any type of adhesive will be fine. But basically you want to glue this down to the back of your clipboard. All right. Now I use this. If you watch some of my videos before, you've seen me use this 3-in-1 beacon, and this is my favorite adhesive. I use this a lot. What I like about it is it doesn't warp your paper. Some of that wet adhesive out there will warp your paper, but I find this works really well. But of course, use any adhesive that you have. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start to glue down my paper. If anybody has any questions, feel free to interrupt me, but I'm going to go ahead and start to do that. Was everybody able to get their hardware off okay? Awesome. Now, when you're gluing down your paper, be conscientious of where your holes are on your clipboard. When I worked with my clipboard the last time, I glued it this way. So when I went to reattach my hardware, my holes were on the bottom. It wasn't a big deal. I just punched new holes, but be aware of that. So make sure before you cover your paper, make sure that your holes are on the top. All right. Okay, so once you have your paper adhered, I'll give everybody a minute to do that. Just give it a minute. We want to make sure it's nice and dry. Now, does anybody have some distress inks or brown inks? Okay, so once our paper is dry, what I like to do is I like to distress the edges. This is completely optional, but you'll find that I tend to do that with everything that I create. Walnut stain typically is my distress ink of choice when I'm making projects, but any type of brown ink will work. You've got your vintage photo that's out there, of course, walnut stain, but any of those inks I'm sure would be fine. I tend to be a little bit of a Tim Holtz fanatic, so most of my stuff is his product. All right. Now to trim your paper, you can certainly use your scissors. I'm using a straight blade. Some people like using straight blades, some people don't. I completely understand that. But I like it because it seems to be pretty easy to cut when I'm using these chipboards. Okay, so once you have your paper trimmed, another thing that I like to do, but again, I'm just showing you some of the tricks and tips that I do. You don't have to do it, but it's just what I do. And hopefully I can show you this. Maybe I can't. I have a it's like an old I got I got it when I had a pedicure years and years ago, and I like it. It's a I have it usually right on my desk. It's just like a sanding block. So I sand my paper, and sometimes that will just get you a little bit closer than a cutting blade can do that. I can't seem to find it on my desk right now, but you can do that. That's just a little trick that I typically do. I ordinarily have it right on my desk, so I didn't even look for it when I started. Oh, there it is right there. It's this right here. So this is just something I got when I was getting a pedicure years and years ago, and I find it works great. So just one thing that I like to do is just finish off my edges with it. Sometimes your scissors can't get you as tight as you want to be. And knowing I'm going to add walnut stain, I don't mind the open paper that it creates, or the white paper, the white edges. And then I'm going to just take my walnut stain here, and I'm just going to finish off the edges. If you do use that sanding block, it will, of course, expose white at the edge of your paper. So if you are going to do that technique, make sure that you do have some ink to finish off your edges. I always say if there's any white showing, then it's not finished. I don't like white on my vintage projects. All right. So I'm going to pause for a minute. Does everybody have their background covered, or are we still working on it?
I'm good.
Is everybody good? All right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to try to figure out the positioning of our shelf as well as our Rocky Mountain Pure Sugarcane or sugar stick plaque. Now for you guys, if you did line up your paper and put your paper towards connected at the bottom, your two pieces, you should have a seam, and you're going to put your shelf right in the middle of that seam. So you've already got pretty much where you want to put your shelf. But we want to kind of position it first, because the worst thing you can do is to glue everything down and realize you don't have everything where you want it to be. So I always like to do a check just to make sure I have everything positioned. So if you want to figure out where your hardware is going to go, you can easily just pop a little hole, you know, so you can kind of see that on the other side where that's going to go. Then be covered once you add your hardware, so don't throw it off. All right. So I know my hardware is going to go about right here, right? So place your hardware. We just want to position to make sure before we add our glue, we have everything positioned where we want it. So your hardware is going to go here. Go ahead and dig into your chipboards and get out your plaque. Now, here's what I like to say. I used this for my project. If you want to copy my project exactly, go for it. But don't feel you have to use the pieces that I use. If you have something else that speaks to you that you like better, I don't know. I mean, for the candy, I think this one works the best. But say you liked, this better, and I'm just using an example. This is yours to choose from. So if you want to, kind of go on your own path and figure out other items you want to use, I'm not insulted at all. This is here to inspire you and to give you ideas, not necessarily to tell you what you have to use. So I'm going to go ahead and position my Rocky Mountain Pure Sugar Stick plaque just about right here, because I'm going to be gluing these items down, and I want to make sure that they're positioned correctly. Now, when you guys are looking at your shelf, you're going to see a rounded part of your shelf, and you're going to see a flat part. You want your flat part to be sticking out, because you're going to be adding this to your shelf. And if you have this rounded part sticking out, it's not going to glue very well. Okay, so take a look at your shelf. The flat part is what you want sticking out. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So once you've kind of figured out where you want everything to go, make sure it's straight, because that glue gun is unforgiving. I'm going to tell you, once you glue it down, there's no moving it. Once you figure out where you want everything to be, I mean, I would even recommend getting your little tin. Make sure when you have this positioned, it's not going to be hitting your board. Truly think about this before you actually start gluing. So when we start to glue, remember, we're going to have this little tin that comes up here, right? Sticking out. So you don't want it to hit your plaque. So this is what we're doing. We're making sure that these two items are where they need to be. So when we start adding our embellishments, we're not going to have any intrusions here. So that's what we're doing here, is we're just taking a minute to make sure we have everything lined up the way it needs to be. Now, for you crafters that like to be precise here, let me see here. So from where my hardware ends, I've got, gosh, maybe in half an inch. So this plaque isn't too far down from your hardware. Okay, so it's about a half an inch down. I'm an eyeballer when I craft, but if you need that measurement, like I said, it's about a half an inch. It's pretty tight. And then from your Rocky Mountain down to your shelf is about, let's see what this is. Inch. I don't know, about, the shelf is about 2.5 inches down, if that helps. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and start gluing. When you guys are ready to start gluing, you can do that. Before you do that, for my original project, I popped this up. So if you have foam tape or foam dots that you want to pop it up, it gives it a little bit of a 3D look. Again, you don't have to do it that way, but that's the way that I did it. All right. I know these classes tend to take a little bit of concentration, so I know we've got a lot of pauses in here. But if anybody has questions along the way, just feel free to let me know. I think the hardest part of creating these projects, to be honest, isn't putting them together. It's coming up with the idea. I think, you know, a lot of people look at these projects and they think how difficult they are to make. And honestly, the mechanics of them aren't as difficult as the idea of it. Once you have the idea, I think a lot of times it's easy to figure out how to do it. It's just coming up with that initial inspiration. And there's a lot of people out there that make it look really easy. I know a lot of people tell me that I make things look really easy, but honestly, I struggle with the inspiration as well. And that's why I don't necessarily do the long tutorials on YouTube, projects like this, because a lot of times, you know, it's taken me days to come up with the idea, a matter of just kind of pulling things out, playing with them, you know, seeing if they'll work together. That's a lot of it. But once you finish this project, you're going to see it wasn't that difficult to put together. But the idea of it is the more difficult part. All right. And I think foam strips for me would have been a little bit better, but all I had was foam dots. Like I said, I've been napping a lot recently, so I guess I didn't have any foam strips, but this is fine. All right. So adding extra here. Okay, so if you are going to use the foam dots, I like to put a little extra adhesive, especially with these ideology projects, because you don't need a lot because the foam tape is going to do it for you. But I just like to put a little extra adhesive just to help it out. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and this is the moment of truth, right? Once you glue it down, that's it. All right, so about right there. I think it's good. Okay, so does everybody have their plaque glued down? Where are we at?
Yep, I do.
You good? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Did you guys decide to go with the foam tape or did you go straight on the paper?
I did foam.
Foam? Yeah, good. Very good. Yeah, it just gives a little bit of a 3D look, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
But not necessary, but just nice. All right. So now that we have our, excuse me, we have our plaque down. Now we want to glue down our shelf. Now I'm going to give you my little secret here. Does anybody know what this is? Can anybody guess what this is?
A Scrabble thing?
It is. Good for you, Kathy. Yeah. Yeah. So you guys know that, again, I collect old vintage items. I collect old vintage games. And through my years, I've collected lots of Scrabble pieces. So I never threw them away. I have a hard time throwing anything away. So I've just had boxes and boxes of these because I knew one day I'd have a use for them. And I had my husband cut them down for me and I stained them and they make the perfect shelves. Yeah. I knew one day I'd have a use for it. All right. So the next thing we want to do is our shelf. So now this is probably the more important thing because, again, you've got this little tin here that sticks up. So you want to make sure you have room for that. So I'll give myself an idea here. Have an inch from the bottom. Okay. So I'm trying very hard to keep some of my images showing here. So I'm going to go about right there. Hope that works. Let's see. Yeah, I should be fine. All right. So remember, when you're gluing your shelf, you want your flat part to be sticking out because we're going to be adding this piece here. All right. So now for your shelf, definitely use your glue gun because you want it to be sturdy. You're going to be adding embellishments on top of it. So you want that shelf to be sturdy. I don't think I'm going to be able to save that. That's all right. Now, before you commit again to gluing your shelf, you're going to have these little stars in your embellishment pack. Make sure you have room for your stars on the bottom. That'll also give you an idea of where your shelf should go. If you have enough room for your largest star, just put your shelf right above that, and you should be fine. That helps. All right. So I'm going in with my glue gun here. Now, you might have noticed, hopefully you've noticed that your shelf is probably a little bit more oversized than your clipboard. So when you're adding your glue, you don't have to go all the way to the edge. Okay. Pretty good. Oh, yeah. Okay, so does everybody have their shelf glued down?
Yes.
For me, this is the most stressful part because I want to make sure my embellishment's fixed. So take your tin, make sure that you've left yourself enough room for that tin. I've got enough room. You just want to make sure it's not going to be covering your plaque. Hopefully we're all okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and set this aside a minute, and we're going to start working on our clip. Now, in your package, you should have gotten one of these metal embellishments. So you want to get that out. And one of the recommended item or suggested, I mean, it's not necessary. One of the suggested items was your distress crayon of picket fence. If you don't have this, you know, it's not that big of a deal. But one thing that I like to do is I like to cover my metal embellishment with the white picket fence distress crayon because it helps to bring out the letters. You can also do this with white paint, but you want to be careful because, of course, you don't want the white paint to seep in between. You just want it to highlight your letters. So if you're careful enough, you can dab a little bit of white paint on your finger and just rub it, and that works as well. Like I said, I tend to have a lot of the Tinfoil products. So I had this picket fence, but they don't sell these individually anymore. You have to buy the whole pack, and I certainly didn't want to add to your kit more expense for something you may or may not use. It is a personal choice. Not everybody loves the distress crayons, but they do have their purpose. All right. And then you should have also gotten in your kit this metal wire here. And this is what's going to attach your sentiment to your clip. So basically what you want to do, we're going to glue this down to help us. But before you do that, what you want to do is take a look at where your notches are here. You want to make sure that before you glue this down, your notches are above here. So that way you haven't covered them. Does that make sense? Because we're going to be putting this wire through and you want to make sure that your hole is still exposed. So if you glue this too low, then of course you can't put your wire through. So you want to glue it, and it's going to be right below this piece here, if you can see on the camera. It's just enough to expose the hole so we can get the wire through. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, good. And the glue just helps to keep it in place, so we're not having to try to keep it in place when we're putting our wire. It's just a little cheat we're going to do here. Use my glue gun. All right. And then we'll give it a second to dry. Is it going in too slow? Try this. Okay, and we'll just give that a minute to dry. Okay, so once you're ready, you're going to want to take your wire piece. It doesn't have glue dangling on it. And you're going to slip it behind. Let me see here. So you have a hole here with your clip, right? You want to slip it behind just like this. And then you're going to have more than you need. Let's see here. So let me put this upside down. So you want to get it right here in that crevice, right next to where your embellishment just fell off. But this is where you want this wire. And I'll show you why in a minute. So just kind of put it there. My glue wasn't quite dry. Stick that there. get this one. All right. So once you're ready, again, you have more wire than you need. But what you're going to do is you're going to come in through the back side. Okay. So going to come in like this. And then you're going to wrap it around. Again, this isn't going to show, but you're going to wrap it around, come to the other side, and then come through. So this can be a little bit tricky. It's not hard. You just got to kind of maneuver it. Does everybody understand what I'm trying to say? So you're going to do one loop to the back. Let's see. I didn't give myself enough. Let's try this again.
Oh.
Okay. All right, so you're going to have this loop in the back here, which is going to kind of help to hold it in place. And then you're going to end up with two pieces here. So you kind of want to have it a little bit even. You're not going to need it all, but you want enough that you can loop them through. And my metal isn't dry. That's why I'm struggling here, because it's moving on me. All right. Okay. So this is where you should be. You should have two pieces of wire sticking out here. Did everybody get this far?
Yes.
I'm not understanding this. Is there supposed to be wire showing on the front?
No.
No, see, I must have gone through wrong.
Yeah, so here's your wire, Deborah. Okay. You're going to come in on the right, go behind, and then come up on the left.
Okay, so I think I went from the back to the front instead of the front to the back.
Yep.
Okay, that's what I did already.
Yeah, and then we're going to set this
hard to see, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think we're going to set this aside a minute, because we're going to be looping this around. And if this isn't completely dry, it's going to give us problems. So let's just put this aside to dry once we get our wire through, and then we're going to come back to it. All right, so we'll set that aside. Once you've got your wire through, let's just set it aside to completely dry on for us. And we can start working on this. All right, this is the fun part anyway. All right, I'll give everybody a second to get where I'm at.
Okay.
All right, so once you've got your wire looped through, again, we're going to put that hardware aside. We're going to make sure it's good and dry. We start, because essentially what we're going to do, everybody, is we're going to take this and we're going to loop it several times through that hole, just to make it look like this. If you guys can see that, it's really, really small, but you're going to loop it several times so that way you have exposed wire here to make it look like that's how it's attached.
All right.
Yeah, but before we start messing with that, I don't want our metal label to fall off. So let's let that just good and dry. All right, so now we're going to work with our candy shelf. Now, the candy shelf is fun. You're going to have, you should have 4 bottles, right? You have 2 bottles that have your candy goodies in there. You have one bottle that has these little white pearls. And then you should have another bottle, which I can't find mine, which we're going to put our candy canes in. Let me get another bottle. Yeah, I don't know what happened to my second bottle, but I got another one here. All right. So you're going to have 4 bottles. And then you should also have in your kit, go on, Nancy. You should also have some labels for your bottles. So you're going to want to, for one of your bottles, you're going to want to have your label. And then for your little bottle, you'll want to cut one of these 1 cents. And then for this label, you can do another 2 for 25 or 2 for 15, excuse me. If you have the Christmas ideology, you could put this 2 for 25 cents on one of the bottles. I did it on my prototype. I didn't really like it as well as I liked the red one because I think the black was too dark. But for the bottle that holds my candy canes, I did put the little 25 cents. That was really cute. Again, not necessary, just an idea. You could easily, I gave you enough of these to be able to use them on all your bottles. So that's what we're going to do next is add our label. All right. Now with the labels, again, I always like to add a little extra adhesive just to help it. It should stick by itself, but better to be safe than sorry. And these stickers are small. Oh boy. There you go. All right. Now, another thing you can do if you guys have ever used this glossy accents, you can take a little bit of this, rub it on your finger and rub it over the label. That will also help it. Absolutely not necessary. But if you wanted to, you could do that as well. All right, so there's one. Okay, and if you want to, when you're cutting out these labels, if you feel like there's a little white showing, feel free to just add a little bit of your walnut stain around the edges. The This is like my staple. This is like mayonnaise for me. I mean, I put it on everything. I just throw a little walnut stain on it. It'll fix it. All right. This label's a little easier to get off. I love these little labels. I made these. I just love them. Sometimes I really impress myself. All right.
Monica, do you use a cutting machine like a Cricut or anything like that?
I have a scan and cut that I use.
The reason I asked was because I make labels all the time for back of cards, and you can buy Avery full 8.5 by 11 sheets, cut them, and then they would peel right off. And they even have clear labels, 8.5 by 11, that you can buy and print them on your printer and then just cut them out.
Yeah, I do actually use my scan and cut for a lot of my labels. I don't do it for the small ones so much, just because they're just as easy to cut out. But for some of the bigger items, my bigger stickers that I have sets of, yeah, I absolutely do use my scan and cut. Sometimes it's difficult with the scan and cut because if it's too detailed, then it tends to pick up all the details within the image. So I struggle a little bit with that scan and cut. I know the Cricut's probably a lot better.
That's the only one I've ever had. I've had it for 5 years, and
yeah.
So I don't really know about the mechanics of others. And like you said, the scan and cut, being able to scan something in is great.
Yeah.
But I could see where it would pick up excess, where with with Cricut, you just design it in your program.
Correct.
And then you just print it out. It's just a little bit simpler.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know when I make my digital kits now, I tend to give it a little bit of a dark shading on the border, because the darker the border is, the easier it will be to pick it up on my scan and cut. So I've learned through the years what works. But yeah, I use that's exactly what I use is the full label sheets, and I print on them. All right. All right. Is everybody doing okay with getting their labels on their jars?
Yes.
Okay, good. I thought about just sending you the little beads separate and have you fill your jars, but it was kind of a pain in the butt, so I decided to fill them for you. I figured we'd be spending 20 minutes just filling our jars.
I remember from last time, yeah.
One of mine emptied out, and so it's taken me the whole time to fill it up today.
Oh no. Oh,
Yeah.
bummer.
So it is a pain. You're right.
Oh no.
That one's not as full. I just don't even care. I don't want to put them all in.
Yeah. And I had to do 15 sets of 3
I
of
don't know how you did it. It's like a
Well,
whole day of work.
Yeah, yeah. Well, once I did the first couple, I'm like, it's going to take too much time when we're taping. Excuse me. All right. So there's 2. And then for this one, I think I am going to use my little 25 again. Let's see. Actually, I think I used the darker one. All right. Okay, so once we have our labels on, I went ahead and I added that 25 cents on this one. It's pretty cute. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add our 10. So you're gonna just kind of eyeball it. You want it sticking out, but not too much, if that makes sense. But you want to make sure that you get enough glue that it sticks. Let me show you the mechanics here. So I don't know if you can see that. So it's about, where's my ruler? I lost my ruler. Oh, gosh. I don't know where my ruler is. I don't know. Maybe an inch, maybe. Just when you do your angle, all I can say is just eyeball it. You don't want it sticking out too much, but you want to make sure that you have it enough where you can get some glue. So you don't want it flat. I mean, that's definitely what you don't want. You don't want it flat. So just kind of, when you glue it and you add your glue, hold it, because you want to make sure it's good and stuck. And that glue gun's going to work for you. You just want to make sure you get enough glue here to hold it down. And most of the glue you'll see on the back side. You don't want, glue sticking out here, because then it's not going to be very pretty. Is everybody okay? You know what you need to do on this? Just get some glue, add it here, hold it down. You'll have a second to maneuver it to how far you want it sticking out, and then hold it. Just hold this till it sticks. All right. So I've got a good amount here, and I'm going to go ahead and just kind of go right in. And for your placement, if you put it right about, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch in from where your plaque is, that should be good. And you should be able to add a little bit of glue on the bottom as well. I should have done that before I added that. All right. Yeah, this is the piece you want to make sure really sticks. And if you need to, if it's still wobbly on you and you need to add a little bit more of your glue gun, go ahead and add it and we'll cover it with an embellishment. You just want to make sure this is secure. It's pretty good. And then we probably should have done this first, but no harm. You're going to want to get your decorative piece here, and you want to add glue to the edge, and this is where the flat piece of the shelf really comes into play. You want to add it, but before you add it to the shelf, pick out your sentiment that you want to glue to it. So you have lots of choices here. You have Peace on Earth, you have December 25th, Winter Wonderland, Merry and Bright. There's a lot of choices that you can use. So choose whichever one you want.
I'm incredibly sorry, but something's come up and I have to run. So
Okay.
I'll catch it on the replay. Thank you so very much for everything.
You're welcome. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. So once you have your sentiment glued down, then you want to go ahead and add your decorative piece to your shelf. And the way that I do it is I just add the glue directly to the shelf versus trying to figure out the backside of my decorative piece. But you want to be quick because this glue dries really quickly. All right. So we'll give everybody a minute to catch up.
Now, did you glue that piece on with hot glue or just regular glue?
The December 25th?
No, the bigger
Oh,
piece.
no, you want to use hot glue.
Hot glue. Okay.
Yeah. And put your hot glue directly on the shelf.
Got it.
Yep. Yeah, these are the pieces we don't want to fall off. Yeah. And the way that you can tell that your tin is secure, you should be able to pick it up with your finger and not have it move. Then you know you're secure. Yeah, hot glue is pretty good. And you got to remember, I mean, for the most part, people shouldn't be tugging at your candy shelf, hopefully.
I have one of those 3-tier, well, it's 2-tier shell, trays that you put on the table that's popular now.
Uh-huh.
That's where this one's going.
Okay. Hopefully people won't be, handling it.
No, they shouldn't.
Smack their fingers if they do.
Exactly.
Put a little sign for looking, not for touching.
Hands off.
But no, you should be pretty secure. I mean, that glue gun is pretty strong.
I personally have to admit, I'm not a big fan of hot glue. I always end up with it all over everything.
Yep. And yeah, I'm with you, Deborah. I don't use hot glue too often. But for projects like this, you just got to make sure there's too many pieces that can fall off.
Right.
So hot glue is the best choice for things like this. All right, so I think we're good to kind of start decorating our shelf. So at this point, we've got our shelf attached. We've got our little decorative piece with our little label here. We've got our metal embellishment, and now we're going to start adding the rest of the items. Now, the first thing that I did when I did mine is I put my jars and then I decorated around it. So that's what we're going to do here.
That's a good idea.
So if you have something that can kind of help prop up your shelf, that's always nice. I don't even know if I do. Let's see if I can figure this out. Because then you can kind of work with a piece standing up. I don't even know if I have something. An easel would be really nice at this point. All right, let's see if I can prop this up. That's pretty good. All right. So I just kind of propped it up so I can kind of start laying my candies. So your empty jar is probably what I would do first because that's kind of your centerpiece. And that's where your candy canes are going to go. And I tell you, I had a heck of a time finding these candy canes because they were selling out all over the place. And I was originally going to only do 10 kits, and then I ended up doing 15. And I was panicking because I couldn't find any more candy canes, but I found them. And then you might have to trim off your candy canes just a bit because when I put them in this jar, I felt like they were too tall. So just snip it a little bit, not too much, but all right. Just to where you feel it looks good. And you don't even need to glue these down. These should just kind of stick right in. Let's see. All right. All right. And then again, I am using hot glue to glue these down because I don't want them to move. And you just need a little dot on the bottom of your jar and that should work fine. And that for the most part goes right in the center of your shelf. And then your red and your pink ones are going to go right on each side of your candy canes. When you do position your red and your pink candy, make sure you push your candy canes forward a little bit. So that way, you know, your jar is in the back of the candy cane versus the front, if that makes sense. Is everybody okay? Everybody doing good?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
When we're quiet, you have to wonder we're working.
I know. But that, you know what? I think when we're quiet, though, I think everything's okay. When we start hearing panic, that's when we have to worry. All right. Okay, so at this point, this is how it should look for you. You should have your candy canes in the middle and then your 2 candy jars on the side. And then your last jar is your little white jar, and that will go right on the left side of your candy jar. All right. Give everybody a minute to catch up. Now, if you are caught up, if you want to, you can add these stars that were also in your package underneath here, just as an extra decorative item. And that's what I'm going to do now. Before you add your stars, if you want to add a little bit of your walnut stain around the edges, that's always nice. Not a necessity, but that's what I do.
Oh, shit. Just where that ended up.
And for the stars, if you want to just use regular adhesive, you don't need to use your glue gun for that. All right, we'll give everybody a moment to catch up. Okay, so you're going to need to make a decision here. On top of your tin, I added that 2 for 25 cent little embellishment. You can choose to add that as well. Inside your packet also has that season's greeting. So if you would rather add that one, that's a good choice as well. I'm going to go ahead and stick with the 2 for 25 cents because it kind of matches the theme.
Oh, she put 3 stars down there.
All right. And then the last piece out of this chipboard is this finger here that we're going to add. We're not going to add it yet. But if you wanted to put all of your other pieces away, this is a good time to do that, to get them out of the way. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and work with our berries. One thing we should have done first, and I apologize, we should have stuck this on the back of the shelf, but it's not a big deal. We'll just place them within. So if you do make this project, again, before you start adhering this, you might want to put your berry twig at the very back and then build off of it. But we can still chip these and just stick them in between. It's not that big of a deal. So I gave you some some red berries and those frosted berries to work with. So what you want to do, there's no rhyme or reason on this. You just want to fill in the gaps is what you want to do. So you're going to have like gaps here, you know, maybe some gaps here, definitely some gaps here. This is where we're going to add our berry embellishment along with our little candy embellishments. So you should have these candy embellishments as well. So just wherever you see a gap and you want to add a little embellishment to add to the shelf, that's what you're going to do next. So if you want to, on this twig that I gave you, I just cut off a piece and I'm going to stick that right in the back here. So that's an option as well.
Was there supposed to be greenery?
Originally on my prototype.
Okay, I have that picture. Okay, that's what I'm looking at. That's okay. I probably have greenery of my own.
Yeah, you know, and the reason I actually started to add it, but it really started fraying and it wasn't really fun to work with. So I left it off of the kit. You could stick some greenery in there. All it was just pieces from just scraps that I had. But when I started cutting it up, it started fraying. It just didn't play nice. So I chose to leave it out. And that was just stuck in between. So like I said, if you find some around your house you want to stick in, you can do it after the fact.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of times when I make these prototypes, I didn't even have a class in mind when I put it together. But once I finished it, I thought it would be a cute class. So
It is. I love it. Yeah, I'm not liking this hot glue.
So right now we're just working with our berries, just kind of sticking them in between. No rhyme or reason, just kind of filling your gaps. And then don't forget you have your little candies as well you want to fill in your gaps with as well. I don't know what we're going to do when Tim starts discontinuing some of this stuff that we love so much. Oh, man. It's like a one and done, I guess. Is everybody doing okay with their berries?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So once you have your berries to fill in the gaps, then the last thing we need to do is, of course, to add our finger, if that's the way you decide to go, and then to add our hardware. Does anybody have any questions where we're at right now? Good. You guys are an easy group.
Okay.
Rhonda, is that your entire room, your craft room? I can't hear you. You're muted.
It is. It used to be my son's bedroom when he moved back in to go to graduate school.
Uh-huh.
And we moved all of his stuff out. And I'm like, oh, let me make that my craft room.
I love it. What a big
Thank you.
space. That's wonderful.
It is. Yeah, the big table I use for my sewing and quilting area. So,
Uh-huh. Fantastic.
and a friend of ours made he made the table and the bookshelf and stuff for me. So,
Yep. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I have ideas for my room. I still work full time. So it's a combination of my workspace and my craft space. But as soon as I retire, all the work stuff is going to go out and I'm going to redo my room.
yeah.
Very
Well,
nice.
I won't be retiring for a while because I take care of my grandkids. So
I
I'm
see.
getting ready to get number 5 at the beginning in June. So
Oh my goodness.
it's never ending.
No. I love your space.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, if everybody's caught up, we're going to go ahead and go back to our hardware. So let's put that aside to dry. By now, your label, your metal label, should be nice and dry. That's the hope here. So what we're going to do is It's real easy. I don't want to make it more complicated than it is. All you're going to do is you're going to loop this around. So you're not going to need as much wire as I gave you, but sometimes it's easier to work with more and then cut it out. So you're just going to do a few loops, probably like 3, just enough to give it the effect of it looking like that's how it's attached. So, and that wire is pretty flexible, so it's not too bad. I'm going to do 3 loops, and then once I finish my 3rd loop, I'm going to kind of loop it towards the back, and then I'm going to trim it, and then I'm going to push that back wire to the end. Be careful not to cut yourself with the edge of that wire, though. It's a little sharp. All right, so is everybody good with those instructions? You're just going to loop it through a few times and then trim it and then push the exposed part in the back. It's just the little details that I think are always fun. You know, a lot of people don't think about some of these extra little details. I mean, it just adds to it, you know. That's why I don't typically do YouTube tutorials on things like this, because again, it's the ideas, right? They don't come to me all at the same time. I might have it and go, oh, that would be a good idea, or why don't I try this? But yeah, this is a real nice technique with these metal bands.
Okay, so I think I
Okay.
here.
All right. Okay, so once you have your metal threaded through your metal bands, you're ready to reattach your hardware to your clipboard.
Right.
Right. Now, just a little tip here. Remember, you probably poked a hole through this before you start attaching your hardware. This screw is the back side, but what I would do is push it through the front side, so that way you have the right dimension for your screw and you don't have all the paper popping up. And then once you have your holes, you know, pop it open, then put your screw in going in the back side. And then you can add your little knob and just screw your knob right on. I guess, of course, after you add your clip. Funny. There we go. All right. So once you get your little knobs screwed on to get it started, then you can always take your screwdriver from the back and tighten it up. But just get the thread started first. All right. right. Is everybody doing okay adding their clip back to their board?
Got it.
Good, perfect.
That was the easiest thing I did.
Oh, come on now, Deborah. This wasn't too
No.
difficult.
No, really. I like I said, I'm just not a fan of the hot glue, and that's
Yeah.
so I don't use it often. So I'm not good at it.
Yeah, yeah. You're gonna be happy you did though, because these.
Well, I'm sure.
Yeah,
The front of my the front of the shelf part though is kind of loose, but I think it'll hold.
Which part? The embellishment part?
Yes, the embellishment part's kind of a little iffy there, but
Is it loose
think
enough to
it'll
pop
hold.
it up? Is it loose enough to pop it up and try again?
no, I think it'll be okay.
Okay, all right.
I think I'll just leave it.
Okay, all right.
I
And
think
then
it'll be okay.
go ahead.
So now we have our little finger.
You have your little fingers. So this is a choice again. You don't have to do that. I like it personally.
I like it too.
Yeah. So it's a choice.
Maybe I'll. Oh no, I won't.
Now remember, you don't need glue on the entire finger, just right above the
just
cuff.
part of it.
Yeah, just right above the cuff is where you need it.
Well, that glue is stuck now.
And that's it.
There we go. It's great. I love it.
So not as difficult as when you see it finished, right?
No. Oh, I love it. It's
Yeah,
adorable.
it's
It's very cute.
yes.
Very nice.
So okay, you guys lift yours up so I can see. Oh, beautiful. Oh, nice. Very nice. You guys, fantastic.
We passed the class.
Yeah. It looks great, guys.
I know you said
Fantastic.
that you like old things. Do you ever do anything with cabinet cards?
Yes, I do. You know, one of the
I
things.
have a couple of boxes full. If you're ever in need.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I have I go to estate sales. I live in Prescott, Arizona. And I go to estate sales here and I've got some really great old items. Just not enough time.
So you're
But,
really in Tim Holt's country there.
I am. He's not
Yeah.
with me. I run into him occasionally.
I took a class from him. Oh my God. I live near Orlando, Florida. And I took a class from him. It must have been 2008, maybe. He taught at some place out in Tampa and for 3 days. So that was kind of like my first introduction to him and his products. You know what I mean? So over the years, now I own all the inks and I own my share. You know, I own all the scissors and all the yeah. So I over the years I have collected my own Tim Holt.
Oh, yes. So, ladies, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the class portion, but don't log off because I want to chit chat with you a bit. I'm going to start recording. So, everybody, this is the finished product. Hopefully, the instructions were clear enough to be able to follow along again. Like I said, I do have extra pieces from the kits that I put together that I'll be adding to the shop. So, if you do want to try this project again, and maybe you just need 1 tin and not 6 tins, I'm going to be adding some of these to the shop. So if you're not familiar with my shop, it is Taylormadecards4u.com, and I'm going to look to add some of these products in the shop over the weekend. So look for those next week. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now, and then we can continue to chit chat. Thank you very much. All right.